Welcome to the Deep Dive. We unpack complex topics, really digging in to find those key nuggets of knowledge for you. Today, we're plunging into one of ancient history's most, well, enduring and captivating mysteries, the disappearance of Rome's Ninth Legion. Just picture this, a formidable, elite fighting force, thousands strong, right at the edge of the Roman Empire in Britannia, and then they just vanish.
Yeah.
No definitive battle recorded, no clear gravesite, just silence.
It really is a historical black hole. It's haunted historians, archaeologists for centuries, and it's inspired some pretty vivid legends and popular tales along the way. So our mission today is to sift through the sources, understand who the Ninth Legion really was, explore the main theories about what could have happened, and maybe uncover the surprising legacy their loss left behind.
Okay, let's unpack that. Before they vanished, who exactly were the Ninth Legion? What made them such a big deal in Rome's military?
Right. Well, the Legio IX Hispana, the Ninth Spanish Legion, they weren't just any unit. They were one of Rome's oldest, most decorated legions. Their history stretches all the way back to Julius Caesar himself.
Caesar, wow.
Yeah. They fought in huge campaigns, the Gallic Wars, the conquest of Britannia. These guys were seasoned veterans, truly elite.
So a really formidable force then. And they were sent to Britain in 43 CE.
That's right. Played a crucial role in establishing Roman control, often stationed up north, critical outposts like Eboracum, modern-day York.
They were basically Rome's iron fist in that cold, damp, often pretty hostile edge of the empire.
Exactly. And what's fascinating, or maybe frustrating for historians, is that the record of them in Britannia is pretty clear, up to a point. We have solid evidence they were at York as late as 108 CE. They're even credited with rebuilding the fortress there in stone around that time.
At 108 CE, they're in York rebuilding, and then what happens that sparks this whole mystery?
Well, that's just it. After about 108 CE, direct references to Legio IX and Britannia just stop. They cease. You see other legions mentioned later on in military roles, building inscriptions, official dispatches about Britain, but the Ninth, conspicuously absent, just gone from the British records.
Right. And for a legion that size, we're talking about, what, roughly 5,000 highly trained soldiers?
Around that, yes, a significant force.
For them to just drop off the map without some huge recorded disaster, that seems highly unusual, even for the Romans, right?
Extremely unusual. And that glaring absence, that silence in the records, that's really the genesis of this enduring mystery. It's quite unsettling.
So let's get into the theories. The most popular one, certainly the most dramatic, is that they met a really brutal end up north, maybe beyond where Hadrian's Wall would eventually be.
Yeah.
Annihilated by those fierce Celtic tribes in Caledonia, modern Scotland. That's the story many of us know, maybe from films or books.
Precisely. Authors like Rosemary Sutcliffe, her famous novel, The Eagle of the Ninth from 1954, that really cemented this image in the public mind, a vivid depiction of the Legion marching north and being overwhelmed by, barbarians.
It's a great story, isn't it? The homegrown Davids taking on the imperial Goliath.
Absolutely. And for the Scots, naturally, it became a powerful narrative, freedom-loving Highlanders resisting the might of Rome. It has real appeal.
It does. But does the actual historical or archaeological evidence back up this dramatic last stand?
Well, that's the crucial question, isn't it? While the idea of this mighty legion being humbled is compelling, there's a surprising lack of hard archaeological evidence. You'd expect something from a massive battle involving thousands, a major battlefield, weapons, remains.
And nothing definitive's been found.
Not on the scale you'd expect for a whole legion being wiped out. Plus, Roman writers, while sometimes biased, rarely kept quiet about defeats this big. Usually there'd be some account, some mention, even if spun politically. But for the Ninth's supposed annihilation in Caledonia, Roman records are pretty silent on that specific event.
Okay, so if the dramatic destruction theory is shaky on evidence, what's the more, let's say, mundane explanation historians have proposed? The less Hollywood version.
Well, many historians lean towards a more strategic explanation, maybe a transfer or perhaps a quiet disbandment. There's some scattered evidence, hints really, that elements, maybe not the whole legion, but parts of it might have been redeployed, perhaps in east.
To deal with other conflicts.
Yeah.
Like in Judea or against Parthia.
Possibly. The Roman Empire was vast, always shifting troops around.
What about those stamped tiles? I remember reading about tiles found in the Netherlands, Nijmegen, I think, with the Ninth's mark. Doesn't that point to a transfer out of Britain?
Yes. The Nijmegen tiles, they do exist, and they bear the Ninth stamp. But the dating is key here. They date to the 80s AD. That's much earlier than their disappearance from Britain around 108 AD.
Oh, right.
We know detachments, vexellations, of the Ninth were on the Rhine fighting Germanic tribes back then, so the tiles show parts of the legion were active on the continent. But it doesn't prove the entire legion packed up and left Britain permanently after 108 AD. It just shows units moved around sometimes.
Okay, so the tile evidence isn't quite the smoking gun for a full transfer. What about the disbandment idea? Just fading away.
That's another possibility. Maybe they weren't wiped out in one go, but slowly depleted. Disease, constant small-scale skirmishes, maybe desertion in a tough province like Britain. If a legion's numbers dropped too low, became combat ineffective, Rome might quietly disband it. They'd disperse the remaining veterans into other units or retire them.
To avoid advertising weakness, essentially. A kind of administrative defeat.
Exactly. Better to quietly shuffle things around than announce a prestigious legion simply couldn't sustain itself.
But even with that, it still feels odd. You'd expect some administrative record, wouldn't you? For a whole legion, especially one with their history, to just dissolve, it feels like a piece of the puzzle is still missing. So we've got the dramatic annihilation theory, maybe not fully supported, and the more mundane transfer or gradual disbandment theories, which also have some question marks. Where does the latest thinking, the emerging consensus, actually land?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because recent analysis, looking at both archaeological hints and reinterpreting historical texts, suggests that maybe the popular legend wasn't entirely wrong after all. The emergent consensus is leaning back towards the Ninth did perish in Britain, just maybe not in the way the old legends depict it.
Oh, so.
If you look at the bigger picture of Britannia in the early 2nd century AD, around the time the Ninth disappears, it seems to have been a really traumatic period for the Romans there. We have the Roman writer Fronto commenting on the reign of Emperor Hadrian, that's AD 117-138. He explicitly says large numbers of Roman soldiers were killed by the British.
Large numbers.
Yes. And another source, the Augustan history, it notes that when Hadrian became emperor, the Britons could not be kept under Roman control. It sounds like there was serious trouble brewing, a major uprising, perhaps.
That definitely sounds like a major crisis for Rome and Britain around that exact time.
It certainly seems so. We even have direct evidence of this crisis. There's a tombstone found in Italy mentioning emergency reinforcements rushed to Britain. Over 3,000 men on what was called the British expedition early in Hadrian's reign.
Sending 3,000 reinforcements is a big deal.
It absolutely is. And then Emperor Hadrian himself comes to Britain in AD 122, and he doesn't come alone. He brings a whole new legion with him, the 6th, victorious. And where does the 6th Legion set up its new base?
Let me guess. York.
Exactly. Yeah. Boracum, the former fortress of the 9th Legion.
Right. So the pieces start to fit together. The great losses Fronto mentioned, the need for reinforcements, a new legion taking over the 9th space. It all points to something catastrophic happening to the 9th.
Precisely. The 9th was the most exposed legion, stationed furthest north. It makes sense they would have borne the brunt of any major uprising or widespread violence in northern Britain during that period. So it looks like Rosemary Sutcliffe might have been right in essence, if not in the specific details of one single battle. The 9th likely met their end fighting insurgents during this major turmoil in Britain. Overwhelmed, perhaps fragmented, but ultimately lost within the province.
Wow. So the popular myth had a kernel of truth.
Yeah.
Just maybe not the Hollywood ending. But the Legion was lost in Britain.
Okay, so the loss of this incredibly experienced elite military unit, it wasn't just some historical footnote. You mentioned a surprising legacy. It actually led to something profound.
Yes, absolutely. The loss of the 9th and the clear evidence of just how volatile and dangerous Britain was highlighted by this crisis seems to have forced Emperor Hadrian's hand. When he visited in AD 122, seeing the situation, realizing the cost of trying to control the far north, he made a pivotal decision.
Which was?
To build a wall. Hadrian's Wall.
Ah, so the loss of the 9th directly led to Hadrian's Wall. It seems to be a major contributing factor, yes. The wall wasn't just about keeping northern tribes out. It was also about controlling movement, consolidating the Roman province, and preventing insurgents within Roman territory from getting support from allies north of the line. It was a statement, this far and no further.
That's incredible. That's the real aha moment. A lost legion leads to this massive permanent structure that literally reshaped the landscape and the future of the island.
Indeed. The ultimate legacy of the 9th Legion's disappearance wasn't just a mystery. It was the creation of a permanent border. It fundamentally divided Britain. You could argue that the origins of what eventually became the separate paths of England and Scotland trace back, in part, to the crisis marked by the loss of this one unlucky Roman legion.
That's quite a legacy. So the mystery of the Roman Ninth Legion, it really does remain one of ancient history's most compelling puzzles. It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that even these incredibly organized, powerful empires could just lose things, lose entire armies to the fog of war and time.
Absolutely. Whether it was one brutal final battle or a slow grind of attrition and disaster compounded by poor record keeping, their absence, it still captures the imagination, and it genuinely reshapes how we understand Roman Britain and imperial strategy.
When you think about the whole story, what really stands out to you? For me, it's that link, how a devastating military loss, the vanishing of 5,000 men, could trigger the building of something as monumental as Hadrian's Wall, something that then dictates the cultural and political split of an entire island for centuries. That connection is just fascinating. And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Thinking about this connection raises a bigger question for you, our listener, to mull over. What other lost moments, maybe seemingly minor events or forgotten failures in history, might have had these huge, profound ripple effects, shaping our world today in ways we're maybe only just starting to grasp?